A prestigious school called Rivalry Magical Academy trains students with talent in magic. One student managed to enroll and study there even though he did not have magic, and his name was Wistoria. But because of this, he was looked down upon and often laughed at by other students. Even his teacher Professor Edward did not agree that there was someone like him at the academy, so sometimes he would embarrass him in front of the whole class. After this humiliation, one of his classmates, named Shin, showed off his skill because Will could not do the easy task he was asked to do. Professor Edward also reminded them all that talent in magic is the most important thing in school. And someone who did not have talent in magic like Will was better off leaving the academy. After their class, Shin with his friends named Lyral and Gordon approached Will to criticize him for always going to the dungeon. But suddenly his friend named Colette came to defend him from Shin's insults. Shin did not argue with her anymore and they just left. Colette did not like what the students and even Professor Edward were doing to Will. However, Will did not think too much about it anymore because it was true that he could not use magic. After a while, he stared at the tower called Mercedes Callis. There reside the powerful wizards called Magiavander. When he was young, he and his friend, named Wistoria, made a promise to each other that they would become Magiavanders so that they could see the sunset. Because of Wistoria's talent, she fulfilled her promise and became the youngest to receive the title of Magiavander. Even though he was left behind, he still did not give up and hoped that one day he would fulfill his promise to Wistoria. Although most of the people in the academy considered him a low-class person, there was one professor who helped him, and that was Professor Werkner. He was scolded again for entering the dungeon without permission. Professor Werkner knew that Will was doing this to collect credits for his dream. He reminded him again that he needed to go through the upper institute first, and to do this, he needed credits from writing, spell work and praxis. But he could not use magic, so he could not get any spell work credits. Even if he focused on praxis, it was still impossible for him to complete the required credits. When Professor Werkner saw the sadness on Will's face, he reminded him of the credits he had missed in the previous exam, so he had to get 4 credits before the end of the week. Fortunately, Professor Werkner knew where Will could get them, and it was at Baskerville on the 6th floor of the dungeon. They had no idea that Shin was listening to their conversation, who immediately walked to the dungeon. He planned to get there immediately, so he could bring Will down. Will also did not waste any more time and entered the dungeon. While Shin's group was looking for the Baskerville, a monster suddenly attacked Gordon. When Lyral saw the monster, he screamed in fear, and Will heard it. He moved quickly and saw the monster ahead, which was an evil sentinel with 10 credits. Shin tried to attack it, but his attacks did not work. At first, Will hesitated to help Shin until he suddenly remembered Wistoria. His mind changed, so he quickly acted to block the monster's attack. Professor Edward immediately spoke to Professor Werkner after he learned that Shin and his friends entered the dungeon without permission. He wanted to have Professor Werkner find them, but when Professor Werkner learned that they were also on the 6th floor, he was no longer worried because he knew Will was there. While Will was exchanging attacks with the monster, Shin was stunned because he could not believe that it was Will fighting the monster. Even Professor Edward could not believe that Will was showing this skill. After Will cut off one of the monster's arms, it tried to retaliate. But he just blocked the attack and defeated the monster. Then he immediately approached Shin, who still could not accept that Will did it to the monster. Even Professor Edward could not accept that someone like Will, who had no magic, would be able to do it. Because of Will had defeated the evil sentinel, Professor Werkner gave him 10 credits. On the day after Wistoria became a Magiavander, there was a high possibility that Will would be removed from the academy. But the headmaster thought of testing Will's skill first before making a decision. Because of Will's good performance, she decided to let him stay in the academy. One day, while in a supplementary class with Professor Werkner, they were reminded of the things they had to go through if they planned to become one of the Magiavanders one day. They had to be recognized by the Upper Institute, and there were 2 ways to achieve this. First, they had to invent a new type of magic, and the second was to accumulate 7,200 credits. But they had a problem because everyone in the class was worried that they would not graduate. So they had to work harder if they wanted to graduate. Will was still grateful to Professor Werkner because compared to other professors, he was still giving them a second chance. After a while, they passed by Shaun's group, who was telling other students that Shaun had defeated the evil sentinel. When Shaun saw Will, he immediately approached him because he was still annoyed that they were made to believe that he had no talent. Even though he wanted to hurt Will, he could not do it, so he just left. Meanwhile, Professor Edward was currently convincing the headmaster to remove Will from the academy. He could not accept that a warrior could outsmart a mage. The headmaster looked at Will's record and admitted that if they would ignore Will's lack of magic, she could tell that he was not just an ordinary student. Since Professor Edward had many more reasons to remove Will, the headmaster suggested him to conduct a supplementary test on Will. If Will failed the test that he was going to take, the headmaster would leave Will's fate at the academy to him. Although Professor Edward was happy with the headmaster's decision, the headmaster was not worried about it at all. Professor Edward immediately looked for Will and saw him in the library with Colette. He told Will to come with him to the spell hall immediately. When they arrived at the spell hall, Will found out about the test that he was going to take. He was told that he only had to hit Professor Edward at least once to pass the test. And if he passed, Will would be given 5 spell work credits. But if he failed, he would have to leave the academy. The headmaster then summoned Professor Werkner to show him the test that Professor Edward was conducting on Will. Although the headmaster understood Professor Werkner's recognition of Will, he also had to consider Professor Edward's perspective, so she decided that Professor Edward had to see for himself if Will still had any potential of becoming Magiavander someday. Professor Werkner was worried since he knew how strong Professor Edward was because he almost become Magiavander before. When Professor Edward started attacking, Will was unable to do anything with the strength of his attacks. Professor Edward did not want to give Will another chance to attack, so he cast many Dax Darbicans. Will knew that he had no hope of matching Professor Edward's attacks, so he thought of his sword, which was his only hope. While Colette was thinking about Will, she was surprised when Will's familiar, named Kiki, suddenly arrived and was already bloody. Kiki wanted to take Will's sword from the locker, and luckily, Colette understood him right away. Professor Edward could not understand why Will still dreamed of becoming Magiavander even though he did not have magic. So Will said that he wanted to be with his beloved and fulfill his promise to her. A few moments later, Colette arrived there carrying Will's sword. So when Professor Edward attacked again, Will easily blocked it. Professor Edward unleashed many attacks again, but Will easily avoided all of them. Even the barrier placed by Professor Edward was destroyed too. Then Will had the opportunity to get close to Professor Edward and successfully wounded him in the face. Because of this, he passed the test and Professor Edward immediately left. Professor Werkner was amazed by what Will did, and at the attack that broke Professor Edward's magic barrier. One day while Will was delivering newspapers, he read on the news that Elfaria had invented a new original magic. So far, Elfaria was the first to invent 12 types of magic. He also read in the newspaper that the Upper Institute had an order at the academy, and the client was Elfaria herself. He immediately returned to their dorm to ask his dorm mate Rosti to make him a magic item. The order was to collect Frostwalker ice cores because Elfaria needed a lot of magic catalysts. He was going to the 4th floor of the dungeon, so he needed Rosti's magic item. Luckily, Rosti had already made something that he could bring. He immediately went to the dungeon, and when he arrived there, he found other students collecting Frostwalker ice cores. Even Shaun was there too, but he was disappointed with the weakness of the Frostwalkers compared to the evil sentinel. So that Will would still get more of it, he decided to go to the lower level. But when he arrived there, he saw a student being attacked by monsters, so he quickly acted to save her. The student he helped was surprised that he used a sword instead of magic. When he talked to her, she introduced herself as Iris, a 4th-year student. While Professor Werkner was in class, Elfaria became their example because of the news about her that morning. Elfaria's influence on the students was so strong that many students joined in collecting Frostwalker ice cores. So Colette also thought that Will might also be in the dungeon because of Elfaria's order. After Will introduced himself, Iris immediately learned that he was the book learner who could not use magic. However, she still did not underestimate the person who saved her life. It turned out that she also came there because of the order, and she told him that Wistoria had saved her before. While Iris was busy talking, Will noticed something around them. He knew that there was a strong monster ahead of them based on the fragments he saw. They continued walking, and not far away was the monster, which was a frost rex. They knew that it was immune to physical attacks, so Iris told Will not to fight it. And the reason why it became known as the dwarves' killer was because everyone who touched it froze immediately. But Will was fine with it because of the magic item he got from Rosti, which was just right to fight this type of monster. He rushed at it and surrounded it using Rosti's magic item. After he finished, he immediately lit it because it turned out to be a bomb. The monster could not do anything and quickly dissolved due to the strong explosion. After Iris witnessed what Will did, she got information that she needed since she was already watching on him. When she returned, she immediately reported to Magia Vander. She was a watcher assigned to find students with potential. She did not hesitate to recommend Will, but Carriot and Eleanor immediately refused because Will could not use magic. Zio, on the other hand, had a different opinion because what was important was finding the one who could help them. Carriot said that they did not need to rush because the Grand Magic Festival was approaching. Their meeting ended there and they all left one by one except for Wistoria. Wistoria could not hide her joy because she knew that Will would be with her soon. One day, the students had a practical test against the golems. Shin and Colette passed it easily, but when Will took the test, he was distracted by another student, causing the golem to attack him. While the top 3 students, namely Hannah, Wignall, and Julius, made the practical test seem easy because of their extraordinary magic skills. After Julius showed off his skills, he approached Hannah and Wignall to challenge them. He was confident that he would defeat them because of the new magic he had learned. Since the two were also competitive, they did not hesitate to accept his challenge. If the 3 of them had a high chance of continuing in the upper institute, this was not Will's situation. He only had 5,405 credits and he might have a hard time graduating. Colette suggested that he join the Grand Magic Festival, and the high mages from Mercedes Callis might scout him. Apart from these, there were also watchers who were recruiting those with talent to bring to the tower. But no matter what Colette said, Will was still not interested because he might end up the same as what happened when they were in their second year. Many scouts from other capitals would also attend to watch, so it was a good opportunity to show off their skills in the Grand Magic Festival. However, Will still did not want to try because he could not use magic either. Suddenly, Colette noticed something in a locker because she felt there was a barrier near it. She uses Kiki and successfully removed the barrier. When they entered, they learned it was an underground gambling den where other students were betting on who would win the Grand Magic Festival. Shin was also there, which surprised Will. Shin was about to scold Will, but Colette immediately warned him. He was also thinking about the top 3 students whom he considered his rivals. But he believed that they were just as strong as him when it came to magic skills, and he only lost in writing skills. That night after Will's class, he went straight to Miss Gina's tavern to work. Rosti was also with him, and most of their customers were dwarves who were close to him. After a few hours, Julius and his friends came there to eat and drink. But Julius immediately lost his appetite because all they saw were dwarves. When he saw Will, he laughed out loud and said that Will was only suited to be with dwarves. Donnan was about to scold him, but another dwarf stopped him. They ordered drinks in a bean dish, but they did not like the food, and even laughed at it. At this point, Will had heard enough and approached Julius to make them take back their insult to the dwarves. But Julius and his friends were even more annoyed, causing them to throw the bean dish at him. When Julius' 2 friends stood up, he immediately knocked them down. The beer spilled on Julius, he also got angry at Will. He did not hesitate to attack until he was able to stop Will. He wanted Will to feel his power, but he was surprised that it did not work on him. Because of this, he changed his mind and challenged Will to join the Grand Magic Festival. He wanted to humiliate Will in front of many spectators. And because Will was still angry, he immediately accepted Julius' challenge. When the Grand Magic Festival arrived, Hannah entered the sky race first. Like the previous Grand Magic Festival, it was easy for her to win. The next competition was called Crown Attack, and this time Shin also joined it. The reason he joined was because Colette invited him, and he could not refuse. But he was surprised when he saw Will because he would be the third member of the group. Other than this, he was the only one in her mind who could help, so they could complete the required 21,000 total credits to join the Crown Attack. Shin could not accept that Will would be his ally. Suddenly, Julius passed by and Shin immediately noticed that Will was not looking at him but at Julius. Aside from Julius, Wignall also joined in the Crown Attack. The students laughed at Will, thinking that he might just embarrass the academy again. When Professor Werkner saw Will, he was also surprised that Will had also joined. Will only told him that even if he was made a laughingstock in the game, it was the fight he had to win. When the competition started, they immediately faced many golems. But this did not stop Will from continuing, and with the help of Colette's magic, he put on a magical gauntlet to destroy the golems that were blocking them. The spectators could not believe what he was doing, while Shin still could not accept that Will was his ally. They quickly defeated the golems, which made them the lead group in the game. Many tests were prepared for the participants, but those did not become an obstacle for Will. Professor Edward was not surprised anymore by Will's action, because he knew that these were the moves of those who always fight in the dungeon. While they continued to the next challenge, the others had a hard time getting past the prepared obstacles. After Julius learned that Will's group was leading among others, he used the new magic he learned. Soon, Will's group entered the enchanted woods where there were a lot of chain circle traps. However, Will already knew what to do with them. After he finished all of them, they immediately continued running until someone suddenly attacked him. It turned out to be Julius, so they were surprised that he got ahead of them. He attacked again, so Shin used his magic. However, it was Will who became the target of his Flambourdelion. With its immense power, it caused extensive damage in the forest. Then he challenged Will to fight him too. Will was stunned by Shin's words, and wondered why he challenged him during the contest. Even though he did not want to accept his challenge, Shin continued to attack. Colette could not stop them because Julius was targeting her. Because Shin did not want to listen to him, Will was forced to face him. Shin remembered the day he first saw Will. While other students were making fun of Will, he decided to help him. Then he also offered Will to be one of his followers, but Will ignored him. He attacked Will non-stop with various types of attacks. But because Will really did not want to fight, he only blocked and avoided him. Even the viewers wondered why they were fighting together in a group. While Rosti and Kiki were worried about Will's condition, Iris approached them to sit next to them. Rosti did not expect that Iris would be supporting Will too. So Iris told him her reason why she chose to support his friend. While Colette was following her companions, she was also being attacked by Julius non-stop. She tried to block his attack but fell into a trap. In a few moments, the viewers noticed the many Julius scattered around the battlefield. He was able to stop most of the participants, but he could not do it with Wignall's group. Wignall quickly defeated him with just one attack because he was not the real Julius. The aides-de-camp of the elf faction, named Filvis and Lafia, were also at the stadium to watch Wignall. Filvis was not too surprised by what Wignall was showing, which to her was just normal. Shin's fight with Will made his friends wonder why he was doing this. After Shin's relentless attacks, he decided to use his Falcon Gardinas. When it charged, Will tried to cut off its wing, but it quickly regenerated. Shin took advantage of this opportunity to attack as well, but luckily, Will managed to block it. Professor Edward was amazed by what Shin had shown and thought that he had already surpassed the student level. Even the scouts from the Fire faction could not believe on what Shin had done. Because of this, they immediately informed Carriot that they saw someone with potential. Will still did not understand why Shin was so angry with him, so this was the moment that Shin expressed his feelings. He just wanted Will to notice him, which he had been waiting for a long time. After Will heard everything that Shin said, he decided to get serious. They continued their fight, but Colette arrived just in time to stop them. Even though Shin did not want to give up, he could not do anything to Colette's sermons. Will took advantage of this opportunity to continue the competition and promised Shin that they would fight another day. Meanwhile, Julius and his group were already at the stadium to take the crown. But when they were close to the crown, Will arrived just in time. While Alfaria was sound asleep, she was suddenly woken up by the Ice Faction's aide-de-camp, named Sarisa. She showed her the potential candidate that their scouts had recommended. One of them was Julius, who was their best candidate and could possibly be Alfaria's successor one day. When the two groups started fighting, he released a smoke. And using Will's senses, he could determine the exact location of their enemy. They started attacking in a few moments, and after the third attack, Will rushed to one of them. But there was still a fourth one who attacked him, and it was here he realized that Julius' group did not even move yet. It turned out that only Julius' clones attacked him, so he realized what type of spell Julius was using. When a clone approached him, Julius blew it up. Because of this, he was surrounded by ice, which made the viewers know what spell Julius was using. It turned out that this was one of Alfaria's 12 spells called Ars Weiss. Will asked Julius how he managed to use Alfaria's spell. Julius replied that it was because of his natural talent and that Alfaria was not even amazing to him. Out of anger, Will immediately rushed forward, but because the clones were targeting him, he was unable to get close to Julius. After a while, the clones suddenly stopped attacking. It turned out that he would be trapped, so that he could no longer avoid Julius' attack called Zolunia Callis. Will was expected not to survive this, so Julius immediately thought that they were the winners. But after a while, they were all surprised when the large ice that hit Will suddenly cracked. He thanked Julius because somehow this attack helped to cool his head. They attacked him again, but he just avoided them so that he could attack Julius's companions. Professor Edward remembered his fight with Will because it was the same as what Will did to him. Will knew that Julius had not yet perfected Ars Weiss because he still needed the help of his colleagues to control the clones. Julius attacked again, but Will easily blocked it. Then he released clones again and attacked Will at the same time. Julius thought he would not be tracked down, but was surprised when Will suddenly approached him. He quickly created a barrier, but Will just broke it. It turned out that Will could determine which was the clone in Julius' real body based on internal temperature. Julius could not believe why Will knew all this even though he had no talent in using magic. So Will said that when they were young, he admired Alfaria's magic, that's why he studied them. For this reason, he also knew the strengths and weaknesses of Alfaria's magic. It was only here that Julius learned that Ars Weiss was invented by Alfaria when she was only 2 years old. That's why he felt like he was just at the same level as a toddler Alfaria. He could not accept it, so he released 8 clones. He had them attack Will at the same time, but it was not a problem for Will because he was used to the 10 Alfarias who usually attack him when he was young. He knocked down the clones one by one until Julius was the only one left. Julius even tried to run, but Will still hit him with his punch. This punch was so strong that he could not get up anymore. Unfortunately, Wignall's group had already arrived there, so they got the crown, which made them the winners of the contest. Alfaria was embarrassed because everyone found out that she had tormented Will before. After Shaun witnessed Will's victory, he promised himself that he would be the only one to defeat Will. Even though they did not win, Colette was still happy with the outcome of the contest. But because Will won against Julius, Julius could do nothing but apologize to the dwarves. Apart from this, they were also ordered to help at Miss Gina's tavern. Professor Werkner was worried about what would happen the next day at school since other students had already seen Will's abilities. The next morning, just as Professor Werkner expected, the students' view of Will had changed. Many groups offered Will to join him in the dungeon. Colette tried to stop them, thinking that Will would be angry. But the opposite happened because Will was happy that many students wanted to be friends with him. A woman tried to invite Will, so Colette said that she and Will were going on a date. That night, Will mentioned to Rosti that he would go shopping the next day because of the all-student praxis was approaching and he needed to buy equipment and magic items. When Rosti found out that Colette would be going with Will, he decided to go too. Colette thought that she would have a date with Will, but it did not happen. She also did not have a chance to be alone with him because Rosti was always there. Colette noticed what Rosti was doing, so when Rosti bought their drinks, she took advantage of the opportunity to ask Will about his relationship with Rosti. She thought that Rosti might be a girl because of her pretty face, which Will immediately denied, and he had proof that Rosti was really a boy. Rosti returned a few moments later, but he only brought 2 drinks. Rosti said that he and Will were just going to share the drink, but Colette decided to just give him her drink. Rosti suggested to Will that he go for the maintenance of his sword alone because as a mage, the dwarves might not like it if they see them too. After Will left, Colette immediately asked Rosti if he liked Will. Rosti did not hesitate to say that he loved Will, and he was also sure that Will loved him more than her, which only made Colette even more annoyed. When Will entered the alley, Lehana was also there and wanted to talk to him. She invited him to a room where Shin was also there. This is where he learned that Lehana planned to form a party with the 4 of them for the upcoming all-student praxis. But as expected, Julius and Shin did not want to be with the one who had embarrassed them. When Shin approached Will, Wignall used his illusion magic to calm Shin down. Lehana explained to Shin why she invited Will to join their party. She knew that even though Will could not use magic, he could do things that they cannot do, and he would definitely be a big help while they were inside the dungeon. She added that her goal was to achieve something while she was still young because their family was known to have short lives. Will wondered why Lehana still had to persevere when she was sure to be able to climb the tower. Lehana also said that for her, climbing the tower was not enough because what she wanted was to become Magia Vander. Because of Will's promise to Wistoria, he agreed to Lehana's offer and thought that this would be his chance to accumulate a lot of credits. When he returned to his friends, he immediately told them about his decision to join Lehana's party for the upcoming all-student praxis. A few days later, the all-student praxis had begun. Lehana wondered why Colette was with them, so Colette said that if Will came, she would come too. Rosti could not join them because they were stationed at the base camp. They had no idea that 2 members of Gotia were also inside the dungeon, named Mars and Headless. When they started, Wignall used the Melvent to help them descend faster. But as they descended, they immediately encountered the Crimson Ants. Will was about to prepare to fight, but Lehana finished it off alone. As they continued, they fought various types of monsters. But Will had a problem because he could not move properly nor use the search spell. For this reason, the others thought that he was just a burden to the party. Although Lehana defended him, she was not sure when he would be useful to the group. After a day since the all-student praxis started, they decided to rest first. To make sure no monsters would attack them, Wignall used illusion magic. Lehana ordered Will to share the food with others. Wignall did not want people to touch him, so he just asked him to put his food on the ground. In their party, only Lehana could touch him because he recognized her strength. In a few moments, Lehana told them what their next step would be. Their priority was to defeat Luminous Nabarus, who was on the 10th floor with 110 credits. To make sure they could defeat it, they had to fight it first before they attacked the other monsters. Since everyone agreed with Lehana's plan, they would take the shortcut that went straight to the 10th floor. When they arrived there, they were surprised to see many dead monsters. When Will looked at one monster, he realized that magic was not used to eliminate it. In a few moments, they saw the Luminous Nabarus, but it was dead already, so they immediately used a search spell. They knew that the one who defeated it was nearby because there were still traces that the attack happened minutes ago. However, they could not detect anything, so Will immediately realized that the one who did it was just above them. When it attacked, he blocked it, but it quickly positioned itself behind Wignall and attacked him. Then it destroyed the ground, so they all fell to the next floor. Will tried to save Wignall, and that was when they separated. Shin and Julius got together, while Colette and Lehana were also separated from them. Because they were on a lower floor, more powerful monsters were scattered there. While Wignall was unconscious, he dreamed of other elves rejecting him because he was a disgrace to their race. He suddenly woke up just after Will had finished eliminating the monster. Will wanted to help him treat his wound, but he refused because he did not want Will to touch him. Because of this, Wignall did the first aid on his wound. On the other hand, the monsters were already attacking the base camp on the 8th floor. Someone had also killed the professors who was assigned there. Professor Edwards suddenly arrived at Professor Werkner's location to inform him that the all-student praxis had been cancelled. He added that they also had to go to the other students to save them. While Will and Wignall were looking for their companions, the others encountered another type of monster. Will confronted two of them and Wignall fought one. After Wignall knocked down his opponent, he was surprised to see Will, who could easily fought with the two monsters. His opponent suddenly got up, so he quickly cast illusion magic. But the illusion magic did not work, and he was lucky that Will moved quickly to save him. When Will approached him, Wignall suddenly laughed and then said how weak he was compared to the other elves. He was the only remaining elf in the academy because the rest of his race had already climbed the tower. His race always told him that he had no talent, and the reason was his illusion magic. Compared to the other elves, his illusion had no substance, so it was not effective against the opponents. Meanwhile, Lehana was also currently expressing her feelings towards Colette. Even though she was the leading student in the academy, she was still weak compared to those who had already climbed the tower. She could say all this because she witnessed Elfaria's ascension when they were both first-year students. Those like Elfaria can truly be called true genius. Meanwhile, Wignall told the story of his past with Eleanor, whom he considered his sister. When the other elves discovered Eleanor's talent, they parted ways. After hearing this, Will immediately understood Wignall's feelings because they were in the same situation. Wignall wanted Will to just leave him because he would just be a burden. But Will did not agree, and he also made it clear that he was still amazed with Wignall's talent. They continued searching their companions and fighting the monsters. Because of what Will was showing, Wignall was just stunned. After a while, Kiki felt something approaching them again. Wignall could not detect it because it turned out to be a new monster that the dungeon would give birth to. Soon, it appeared right in front of them, which was a Balkars, so Will tried to blow it up. Although his explosive device did not work, he knew the only way to fight the Balkars, and that was illusion magic, so he needed Wignall's help. But Wignall was not confident in his illusion magic, so he was still hesitant to use it. But when he saw that Will's sword was not working, he tried illusion magic. His first try did not work, so Will quickly blocked the Balkars' attack. He was about to lose hope, but Will motivated and told him to take courage. Here he attacked again, and this time, he successfully defeated the enemies. Then he knelt down to apologize for what he had said to Will. He was immediately forgiven because Will had great respect for him. While Julius was trying to use a search spell, Shin suddenly pulled him away because he sensed that enemies were coming. These were evil sentinels, which made Julius worried. But Shin was not afraid of them because this was the reason why he was embarrassed in front of Will. They did not know that the evil sentinels also attacked the others at the base camp. Luckily, Professor Edward arrived just in time to save the students. After giving the students instructions, he and Professor Werkner immediately left to find Lehana's party, which was the only party that made it to the 8th floor. Professor Werkner knew that Will was on the 11th floor because his crystal was connected to Kiki's crystal. Colette had placed signs everywhere they went, so that Will could easily track them down. Soon, Will found Shin, who had just finished defeating the evil sentinels. At that time, Colette and Lehana met Mars and Headless. They saw the severed heads and Headless' hand, so they found out that they had already killed their other professors. The girls immediately asked who they were, but according to Headless, they were just ordinary enemies who wanted to destroy the false sky. He was referring to the Magia Vander's Great Barrier, which once broken would bring great calamity. Headless suddenly attacked them, but luckily, Will arrived just in time to block it. Headless was about to attack again, but Mars stopped him because they still had something to get. Because of this, he just released the monster that attacked Will on the 10th floor, the evil Grand Duke, which was worth 270 credits. It attacked them, and after they avoided it, they quickly ran to hide. Based on what Will had read, the evil Grand Duke was usually seen on the 25th floor. So Lehana immediately thought that it might be because of the gate created by Headless that had reached the 11th floor. The enemy could even summon the evil guards and sentinels, that's why they could not leave their hiding place. Will suggested that they just face and defeat the evil Grand Duke because they had no other way to get out of there. The one who commands the other monsters would lose its power if they defeated the leader. Julius did not want to do Will's plan, but Wignall chose to agree with Will. Even Shin and Colette understood the plan, so Lehana agreed too. Because of this, Julius could not do anything, and was told that Will needed him to succeed in this plan. Will told him the trick of Ars Weiss that he had to use. It turned out that he could use clones in the incantation of the spell, that even if the clone was destroyed, the other clone would still be able to continue the incantation. The others served as support while Julius prepared his spell. Julius successfully completed his spell and attacked the evil Grand Duke. But since this was not enough, Lehana also took action to finish it. Unfortunately, there was a barrier that surrounding it, so Will quickly saved her. Even though Kiki created a barrier, it was not enough, causing Will's goggles to be destroyed. Although they both survived, Will lost confidence because of the damage to his goggles that Elf Aria gave him. Lehana decided to fight the evil Grand Duke again, so that they have a chance to escape. But Wignall decided to stay behind to accompany her. They attacked the evil Grand Duke while Shaun was confused if he would run and leave them, or fight the enemy. Will suddenly spoke and begged Shaun to punch him because he could not stop himself from shaking. Shaun did not hesitate to do it because of his annoyance on the person who gave them courage, but seemed giving up at that moment. After a few punches that Will received, he calmed down. He got up again to help Lehana and Wignall. Because of this, Colette decided to help too. When the evil Grand Duke attacked Will, he left his sword behind, and because Colette immediately understood what he was planning to do, she was able to quickly cast a spell. He managed to cut off one of the evil Grand Duke's wings, and Shaun did not just stand there, who also started attacking. But no matter how strong Shaun's attack was, it was still not enough to defeat the enemy. Suddenly, something fell in front of Will, and it turned out to be from Rosti, so he remembered that the wand and sword were needed to defeat the evil Grand Duke. When he remembered this, he quickly took his sword and told Shaun to cast a spell. Fortunately, Shaun understood him immediately, and he used the Wisconsin. Lehana could not believe her eyes because the sword had swallowed Shaun's spell. Will quickly charged at the evil Grand Duke and successfully defeated it, causing him to completely win against the monster. But he quickly ran out of strength, and his sword was slowly returning to its previous form. Although they had defeated the evil Grand Duke, the evil sentinels rushed at them at the same time. The problem was that they no longer had the strength to fight back. Just as Julius was about to be attacked, someone suddenly attacked the monsters, and in an instant they were all wiped out. It turned out to be the Magiavander of the Light faction, named Aaron, also known as the King of Magiavander. They praised them for their fighting skills against the monsters in the dungeon. A few moments later, one of Aaron's companions came down and approached Will. He did not expect that there was still someone who used a sword, so he asked Will's name and he introduced himself as Finn. Meanwhile, Mars got what they wanted, and it was a right decision that they did not fight Will's group. In total, 11 people died in the all-student praxis, and all of them were professors of the academy. Will's group was still recovering after that experience. While they were talking about what happened in the dungeon, Shaun asked what kind of power Will had released to defeat the evil Grand Duke. But even Will could not understand what had happened because his mind was blank at that time. Lehana thought to ask the professors because they might know something, and she believed that Will had released a special power. Will also asked about Finn, and according to Lehana, it was said in the book she read that Finn's clan served as a guide whenever there was a campaign needed to carry out in the dungeon. Although they cannot use magic, they were a great help to the mages to reach the deeper parts of the dungeon. At night, Finn met with the headmaster to give her the sword called the Mage Slayer. He had a strong feeling that the Mage Slayer was not originally from the dungeon, and that an experiment was being conducted on it. Aaron had ordered him to return to the dungeon to investigate, so he would leave the sword for the headmaster to analyze. He also did not hesitate to ask about Will, and said that he should be the one to guide someone like him. The headmaster said that Will was a student at the academy, and he wanted to climb the tower to become a Magiavander. Finn did not mind about it that much and left Will with the headmaster for the meantime. But from then on, he would start keeping an eye on Will. While Will was training, Julius and others were wondering why Will was still able to do this despite the injuries he had sustained. Shaun took advantage of this opportunity to challenge Will to a fight. Even though Shaun had not recovered yet, he did not care because Will had promised him that they would fight. Because of this, Will just gave in and they started fighting. But after a while, Professor Werkner saw them, so they quickly ran away. This is the end of last episode of Wistoria 1 and Sword Season 1. I hope you like it and give it a thumbs up. Please subscribe to my channel so you won't miss newly uploaded videos. Thank you for supporting this channel.